All right, the next thing I want to talk about is grief, loss, and death. Let's begin with a quote by a Zen teacher named Shinryu Suzuki. He takes quite an unflinching look at death in this quote where he says, "Life is like stepping out onto a boat that is about to sail out to the sea and sink." Basically, he's making a bare bones acknowledgement of a simple fact: we all must eventually experience the ultimate loss, death. So the question is, how can we live knowing that we must give up all that we love and then finally make the ultimate sacrifice ourselves? Let's begin with grief. I want to make completely clear that grief may very well be appropriate. We are human after all, and this is part of who and what we are. It's unpleasant, but it can be very meaningful, and so it may very well be appropriate. What is not appropriate is excessive grief, the kind that descends into bitterness and resentment due to outrage at loss. So let's turn to loss next. And the story of loss is really the story of attachment. We all experience loss, but when we feel it resentfully, it tends to be due to unrealistic attachment. Something we felt would last forever, or that was somehow owed to us, is suddenly gone, and we take it as a personal offense perpetrated by the universe. Yet the universe owes us nothing, and nothing lasts forever. A prime example is provided by modern cosmology. Even stars are impermanent. The image on the left is a dead star, a star that has gone supernova. One day the sun will not rise. Now, for an example closer to home, imagine a parent whose child is lost in a car accident. Parents are not supposed to outlive their children, so they say. Yet, it is unrealistic to believe that we live in a world without accidents, where parents do not sometimes outlive their children. Now, no one could fail to feel terrible grief at this, yet adding resentment on top of it only compounds the suffering. So what can we do with this knowledge? What we can do is fully and completely acknowledge this, so that we do not fall into the inappropriate attachment that leads to bitterness and resentment at loss. This was a cornerstone of the philosophy put forward by the Buddha 2,500 years ago. All things are impermanent. Stoicism likewise teaches full and complete acceptance of this reality. And to do this, we can practice serenity gardening, a skill that we've seen before. Serenity gardening, once again, is changing what we can change while accepting what we cannot. A skill facilitated by many of the practices in Buddhism, Stoicism, and other paths. And with this skill, we can develop a mature and healthy relationship to loss. But the ultimate loss is, of course, death. So now we'll look at death in depth by addressing 3 common appraisals that resist fully accepting it, resulting in unnecessary anxiety. And we'll also look at naturalistic ways to broaden and reappraise in order to confront death more constructively. The first appraisal of death sees it as a loss of the chance to make something of yourself. And in this state of mind, we beg, wait, can't I get a second chance at life? Well, death is a loss of opportunity, but the larger question is, what are you doing with the current opportunity? The present moment is really our first chance, and indeed our only chance. Rather than begging for second chances, the question is, what are we doing with our first chance? We can reappraise by seeing death not as a loss, but as a reminder. A reminder to make each moment count. Carpe diem, seize the day, as the saying goes. We can do that by practicing all the skills we've been learning in this course. And this brings us to our second appraisal of death, which interprets death as negating the meaning of life. From this state of mind, we ask, what's the point of being alive if you're just going to rot in the ground anyway? It will be as if we were never even here. Now, this appraisal seems driven by 2 false assumptions. The first overestimates how important we really are. From a sufficiently zoomed out perspective, we should feel insignificant. Even the grandest emperor is dust in the long stretch of time, and we all know it, even if we don't like to think about it. So we can reappraise by broadening our perspective to get a less exaggerated perception of ourselves. But at the same time, we must not fall prey to the second false assumption, which underestimates how important we are. On a local scale, our actions do have consequences that outlast us. We have effects on the people around us and society. We affect the environment. All of these things make the actions that we do now consequential and meaningful. We are like drops sending ripples out into the ocean. And this reinforces the importance of making the most of each moment, making sure the ripples you leave behind are good ones. And in this vein, Michael Dowd stresses the importance of being able to say that in an age of climate crisis, you helped preserve the environment for your children. Can death invalidate the meaning of that? I think not. The third appraisal of death sees it as utterly incomprehensible, likely stemming from the simple inability of human minds to imagine not experiencing anything. I just can't imagine not existing, we say. And this may result in abject terror. Nevertheless, I would suggest that it too is an illusion, and in this case it's created by the way we think of our own existence. We tend to think of ourselves as things, when actually we are events. We are what the universe is doing right now in us. Like waves on an ocean, we are not separate from everything else, and when the wave subsides, the ocean goes on. Now make no mistake, our personality, our biography, what the universe is doing right now in us, yes, that will end. But everything that we are composed of will simply change shape and become something else that the universe will be doing. If we can learn to identify with that part of ourselves, the bigger cosmic part, we can take solace in belonging to the ongoing eternal beauty of the universe. Visualizing this on a regular basis can help create that change in perspective. See it in your mind's eye. Right now, there's matter constantly flowing in and out of you. Hair follicles and skin cells, things that are part of us, fall away and become nutriment for other life. Now, where is the line then between us and them? The air we breathe in is part of us for a moment, and then exhaled it goes off to become part of some other creature. So where is the line then between us and them? If you continually think in this way, it soon becomes clear that there's no simple boundary between ourselves and the rest of the universe. We are the universe, and it is us. From this broadened perspective, the death of our small selves, this one body, is but a small thing compared to our big selves, the entire cosmos. Nevertheless, we do have to completely and without reservation acknowledge the fact that our small selves, this continuum of consciousness, this point of view, this perspective that we have, including our personality and personal biography, will end. There's no getting around that. It is something that we must simply embrace. Now, as we've seen time and again in this course, you can't just decide to think differently and expect your feelings to go along with it straight away. To admit intellectually to any of what we've been talking about is one thing, but internalizing it on a gut level is quite another. So we need practice. We need to find a way to teach ourselves, to ease our grip, and feel our connection with the larger cosmos. Here is one possible practice that can help with that. This is something that I've started doing, and I call it the meditation of letting go. First, whenever you are clipping your hair or nails so that some part of your physical body is going away, try to feel yourself as that part which is dying at this moment. You may even grip the clippings tightly in your hand to represent the attachment that we all have, and then relax your grip, symbolically letting your attachment go. And as you do this, you can say these words: "This is the body, this is the cosmos. Just as this part goes away, but the body goes on, so too shall I one day be cut down, but the cosmos continue. I am the body, I am the cosmos." Afterwards, you may dispose of the clippings in soil or compost where they can nourish other creatures and thus take on new forms of life. In summary, how can we live knowing that we must eventually give everything up? First, we can remember that grief is often appropriate. Second, we must accept that loss is inevitable, And we can practice serenity gardening, changing what we can change while accepting what we cannot. Finally, we can confront death, fully accepting it while making each moment count, neither overestimating nor underestimating the impact of our actions on the world, and discovering our connection to the eternal beauty of the cosmos. And if we do that, then we may be able to stand alongside Shinryu Suzuki with equal nerve in the face of death. Here's another quote from him. He says, "Treat every moment as your last. It is not preparation for something else."